I have.
All right, are there any changes?
Yes. No.
Okay. I would like to call the agenda, the legislative meeting for the mayor and council to order Tuesday, April 6, 2021. It's 7 p.m. We're having this meeting on WebEx, and start with the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you, everyone. Okay. We've had a review of the agenda. On the agenda tonight is mayor and council event announcements, closed session summary from March 2nd, 2021, public comment. If you have any public comment and you're a participant, please chat that you have a comment. 6, we'll have a 10-minute presentation by Cindy Lapp and Linda Green regarding Court Watch. We'll then follow by a variance request of 3405 Newton Street. Under old business, we'll be doing Ordinance 03-2021 and then Ordinance 04-2021. Under new business, we'll start with Ordinance 05-2021 and continuing down under new business. I need somebody to scroll down there. Number 11 will be 06-2021, amendments to Chapter 3A. Number 12, Ordinance 07-2021, approval of the FY 2022 tax rates and budget. Number 13, approval of minutes from previous council session meetings. And number 14, mayor, council, and city manager reports. And then adjournment. Okay. Can I get a motion to approve the agenda as presented?
So moved.
Can I get a second?
Second.
Are there any objections? Hearing none, we'll continue with number 3, mayor and council event announcements. I'll start in Ward 1. Selena, do you have any announcements?
I do. A pretty good, fun of announcement. So as some of you guys are aware, the 4th graders in the state of Maryland compete in If I Were a Mayor for the Day essay contest put together by the Maryland Municipal League. I am part of the outreach committee. So tomorrow, the whole entire committee is going to be reading over 1,200 essays that were submitted from 4th graders all over the state in order to select the most outstanding essay in order to be mayor for the day, but at the same time be honored by the Governor Hogan. So you will see your elected officials. I'll be representing Mount Rainier. I usually do that. And from all over the state reading essays, and we wish every single child that's in the 4th grade that participated good luck. And I know we also had entries from our local schools. So best wishes, and soon we will know who are our top essays overall. So it should be an exciting day tomorrow. Lots of reading and lots of enjoyment as well. So that will be my announcement for today. And also to remind the parents, the hybrid in-person as well as virtual is starting in a few days. So be ready for that as well. If you're driving, be very careful around the streets because there'll be children walking to school as well. And to the parents, best of luck. And so to the teachers as well.
Okay, Ward 2, Brian.
I do not have any announcements.
Scott?
No event announcements. Thank you.
Okay. We'll move to the closed session summary then for March 2nd, 2021. We had a closed session meeting on March 2nd, 2021 at 9 p.m. through WebEx. Mayor Miles read the appropriate statutory section for real estate and to consult with legal counsel. I made the motion to go into closed session and Councilmember Benitez seconded the motion. We closed the meeting under 305B, 3, and 7 to consider the acquisition of real property and to consult with counsel to obtain legal advice. It was unanimous vote to go into the closed session. Those in attendance were Mayor Miles, Councilmember Cecil, Councilmember Benitez, myself, Councilmember Nedler, our city manager, and our city attorney. Actions taken were to have continued discussion with the sellers on parameters of purchase contract. The topics discussed were the potential purchase of real property and consultation with attorney on purchase. There were no relevant notes. Moving on to next on the agenda, We have Cindy Lapp and Linda Green. Are you guys here to give your presentation? Really appreciate you guys coming by.
Councilmember Chesed,
Yep.
it's right now it's public comment.
Oh, sorry, I skipped ahead. My apologies. Okay, we are open for public comment. Our city clerk, John Houtz. John, do we have anyone for public comment?
I have nobody as of yet, and I don't see anything in the chat.
Okay, if you want to put something in the chat, please do. I will do a really slow count of going once, going twice. All right, Cindy and Linda, if you guys are here, you guys can come off of mute. We really appreciate you guys coming here and making yourself available. I am just going to turn it over to you guys so we don't take up any of your time. So you have 10 minutes, and I'll just hand it over to you guys to explain what you're doing and maybe have an ask for us. Thank you.
Okay, well, I'm Linda Green. I'm going to go first, and then Cindy will finish up. I live in the 3100 block of Barnum Street. I've lived in Mount Rainier for 42 years. But I'm also, since I retired from medicine, I've been a member of Court Watch, PG, and Life After Release. And so in this capacity, I'm asking the Mount Rainier City Council to support permanently keeping the courts open virtually, permanently here, by writing a letter of support to the Chief Judge, Mary Barbera. I want to give a little background. Since the onset of the pandemic, the courts in Prince George's County have been conducted by way of Zoom. And since the beginning, Court Watch PG began observing cases. We started a little bit before the virtual stuff started, but then we did everything virtually. Initially, there was really one person, Carmen Johnson, who was really detailed, who was doing it both in court and virtually. But then we were joined with law students from Howard University, then from the University of Michigan. And in the past year, 40 to 50 trained court watchers have observed over 1,000 cases in the Upper Marlboro Courthouse, mostly initial arraignments and bond hearings. A report from the Howard students outlined cases of judges and prosecutors demonstrating bias and disrespectful treatment of some residents. This report is available on the Howard Law website. The other thing that will happen though, is the data from all of those cases and outcomes will be forthcoming in a report. The Court Watch PG effort received a boost from Fiona Apple. Hopefully you know who Fiona Apple is. She spoke at the Grammy Awards this year, and instead of talking about entertainment, she talked about Court Watch and called out the Life After Release and PG Court Watch group and said this was a really great thing. And she has been a court watcher herself with us and has met regularly with the team of court watchers. As the courts reopen, there is concern that the virtual access will be limited or discontinued. To this end, a petition with over 7,000 signatures is circulating with the slogan, "Injustice happens in an empty courtroom." The campaign to permanently keep courts virtual has also included outreach to community groups and political leaders at federal, state, and local levels like we're doing here today. In addition to observing cases, the virtual system also allows for significant court support by family and friends. We can change the tone in the courtroom and humanize the loved ones facing the court. Recently, this has likely helped with sentencing reductions, moving a teenager from adult to juvenile court, and freeing a young man after a remote assault charge to continue his work with the county's mutual aid programs. There's also considerable educational value to the public for learning how the courts work, being able to hear and see the judges and the lawyers at work. Today, I watched a post-conviction case. It was a lot of things that I'd never heard of in legal stuff, and a lot of people can learn from this. Transparency does teach us a lot, and it may even help the courts erode the structural racism of the criminal legal system as it currently exists. Traveling to the court in Upper Marlboro is quite a task for residents who live in our town. Missed work, transportation, and childcare costs add a lot to the stress of facing the criminal legal system. Sometimes, even when the courts were open, people were turned away because of crowded conditions in the courtroom, even after making the trip. and this is likely to be more of an issue as COVID-19 safety requirements are applied in the courtroom. So for these reasons, it would be wonderful for the Mount Rainier Council to address this issue with the Chief Judge and keep the courts open virtually. So I'll let Cindy take over.
Thanks, Linda. And thank you so much to the council for allowing us this time. My name is Cynthia Lapp. I've lived in Mount Rainier for 25 years. I'm at the 31st and Webster. I'm pastor at Hyattsville Mennonite Church, and my congregation has become very active with life after release in various ways, and we have 3 court watchers from our congregation. I am really proud of the way that Mount Rainier has opened the local government processes and elections to people in the community that are 16 and older without proof of U.S. citizenship or formal U.S. immigration status. This shows that Mount Rainier wants everyone in the community to be part of decision-making for the community, and we want everyone to have their voices heard. I see this call for virtual access to the courts as a similar ask. We want anyone who's interested to be able to observe the legal process, especially those who have loved ones that are caught up in a legal system that is not always fair, just, or respectful, as Linda has said. Additionally, the location of the district courthouse in Upper Marlboro is quite difficult to find, even by car. Public transportation can take an hour or more to get to, more than an hour to get there, and more than an hour to get back. Participation in the court system should not depend on your income level or where you live and work or your flexibility of your work. Cornel West says that justice is what love looks like in public. But if the courts aren't accessible to the public, how do we know that they are just? We hope that you will join us in lending your voices to the call for the courts and especially bond hearings to be virtually accessible permanently. We can provide a sample letter if that would be helpful, and we're happy to talk further outside of the meeting if that would be helpful. Thank you so much for your time and your consideration.
Thank you so much, guys. I am going to turn it over to Ward 2, I think, this time for comment. I'll start with Scott.
Hey, Linda, it's nice to see you. Cindy, I'm not sure that we've ever met before, but thank you for being here as well. Thanks for bringing this to everyone's attention, including mine. I've seen a few people posting about Court Watch recently, so I'm really grateful that you brought this to this meeting. So thank you for that. I'm 100% in support of us, sending a letter to the head judge or whatever other action items you just listed there for us. More than happy to do that. And I will say candidly, one of you, I think it was Linda, mentioned, when you watch these court proceedings, you're learning a lot of legal terms and how the legal system works, but you're also spotting instances of bias, whether it's from the law enforcement officers themselves or judges or prosecutors, or really anyone else in the courtroom, sometimes even the public defender or the attorney of the criminal suspect. I just want to say that one of the ways to prevent people from being put into that situation, from even having to go to court, is by not arresting them. So I just want to repeat calls that I've made before in the past on this council about the need to deprioritize arrests for a whole host of issues so that we're not contributing to what we know is a very racially biased and economically biased and classist court system. Let's stop sending our residents there to the greatest extent we can, particularly if they're suspected of committing nonviolent crimes. So thanks for bringing this to our attention, and I look forward to watching some of the court myself. I hope that we can keep it online, and I just really appreciate you both being here. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Scott. Brian?
Yeah, I just would agree with everything Scott just said. And thank you for bringing this to us. A sample letter would be helpful just to speed things up. So that would be great. And I know, having been in the legal profession, that judges have often resisted cameras in the courtroom because they feel that the attorneys will, play to the camera and that sort of thing. Well, that's the judge's problem to deal with that. This does open up, maybe this year-long virtual experiment or experience will have changed some of their minds. And it's like the council, we had to, adapt with the virtual meetings. And so maybe the courts, and we've done, I think, quite well. It's been a little quirky. It's a little difficult sometimes to get public participation, but I think it's worked overall. So I totally support this, and hopefully we can get this moved fairly quickly. Thank you.
Thank you, Brian. Selena?
Yeah, thank you for bringing it up to our attention. I think that aside from everything you mentioned, it does allow accessibility for people to be also presenting, as you mentioned. I would definitely like to point out to council that a letter was submitted, and I would like to read it. And if we approve of this, we could send it to legal, and it could be ready for voting on the next meeting if this is what we choose to do. So I'm not sure if it's in the package, but I have it in front of me and I could give a quick read. But I'd like to move forward with it. If we possibly can, so that way it's not sitting around for another meeting to move forward. So it's very straightforward. It's 3 little paragraphs. I'll read it through.
Just
So, dear,
a little clarification. Is this a letter that Linda and that they wrote, or is this a letter that we've written previously? Who's the author of this letter?
they wrote.
Okay, great.
They wrote the letter, so I think that so I could read it for you guys quickly. It says, "Dear Honorable Sheila Tilson Adams, Honorable Lisa Hall Johnson," and it has the address. We are writing to express our appreciation for improving access to the Prince George's County Court during the past year by establishing virtual or remote access. Virtual access has drastically lowered the cost and inconvenience to our residents who need the use to the court system, and has increased confidence in our judicial system. The residents of Mount Rainier are sometimes summoned before the courts only they wish to support a loved one once there, and this has traditionally entailed consideration costs because in-person court appearance require a day off from work and loss of wages. In addition, public transportation to the court, to the circuit court from Mount Rainier can take more than 4 hours round trip. Our elderly and physical impaired residents find the journey daunting. A taxi or Uber ride from Mount Rainier costs more than $100 round trip. Before virtual access, some of the Mount Rainier residents travel to courts in PG only to find their courtrooms already filled to capacity, and so they were abruptly shut out of the court procedure. Our virtual access during the past year has been a blessing for Mount Rainier and Route 1 corridor residents, and we are requesting that the courts in Prince George's County remain as open, accessible, and transparent as they have become during the past year. Courts have a vital part of our civic life, and we are committed to ensuring that our residents have full faith with greater easy and less personal financial costs. And the Supreme Court noted the Press Enterprise Code versus Superior Court of Riverside County, and it has the whole citation of it, regarding the public ability to access court procedure. Openness does enhance both the basic fairness of the criminal trial and the appearance of fairness, so essentially to the public confidence of the system. We are asking the Prince George's County courts remain as they have during the past year and continue to allow those who wish to participate at distance to continue to access the courts virtually. Yours truly, and then I'll have our names. But that's the letter that was submitted by Cindy and Linda to us for consideration for us to be able to send out.
Thank you, Selena. Is there any objection to having Latasha and John sign our names to that letter and get that out to whom it's addressed to?
I would move that we adopt the letter, have it sent after corporate counsel, city attorney, legal has reviewed it and made any changes that would be necessary, and then we just get it out the door.
Also, we have changed the chief judge is actually a different person now, so the address we can give you.
Okay. Need a second for that motion.
Okay. Second.
Thank you.
Are there any objections to the motion on the floor? Hearing none, the motion's passed. Linda, could you please send the new address to Latasha and John, who are on, I think, on an email. They should be in the participants listing here. You should see John Holtz. John, sometimes I can't pronounce your last name when I look at it. Just you can chat John in the box there. And he should be able to get you his email addresses as well, and him and Latasha can work to amend the letter to get the appropriate address on there, and we can get that sent out.
Great. Thank you so much to all of you. Appreciate your support.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. And I'll just say quickly as a comment, this just demonstrates once again how wonderful our residents are. For a city our size, we just always punch over our weight on many issues, and I just really appreciate the citizens helping us be better advocates. So thank you so much.
Luke,
Okay.
I'm sorry, Luke, time check. Do we have time for a question? A very quick one?
Sure. Is there a question?
I have one.
Okay.
Yeah, so to Cindy or Linda, and forgive me if you said this already and I didn't catch it when you were speaking, have the courts named when they're going to stop with virtual court? Like, are we trying to stop an impending deadline, or have they said anything one way or the other?
Well, they have actually said that they want to keep the courts open virtually, but they haven't committed to a permanent solution along these lines. And it's also unclear how they might limit virtual access, even if they continue it to some degree. So I think the more pressure that is brought on them to make it wide open, the better off we are. And tomorrow there's actually a town hall on this subject. I'll put that in the chat too, at 3:30, which the judges are doing, which is very unusual, but they're doing it in response to the campaign. So I'll put all that information in the chart.
Thank you, Linda. I appreciate it. I just wanted to understand if this was trying to stop them from something they said they were going to do, or if we're trying to encourage them to keep it as open as transparent as possible. So thanks for the clarification. I think that makes a difference, and I'll try to join tomorrow for the town hall.
Okay, I'll send it to them.
All right. Thanks, anyone. Any more questions? Thanks, Scott. Okay, so now we are on to the variance request, 3405 Newton Street and 3710 34th Street. Brian, I'll turn it over to you.
Okay. So my understanding, I think some of the people involved with these two properties are probably in the audience. I don't know all the names. Alma will have to help me out. But 3405 Newton, unfortunately, we have never received any information from the design review board, because my understanding is they have yet to meet with the owner and architect they had a meeting, and then there were revisions requested, and Alma, correct me if I'm making any mistakes here. And then they tried to set up a second meeting and it didn't work out. And so we keep hoping that the design review board can get back with them. Meanwhile, we really, in my opinion, are not prepared to vote on this because we don't have the final recommendation from the design review board. Unfortunately, that's going to delay them from getting back to the zoning appeals, but I'm hoping that the owners and their attorney and architect can get back with the design review board and get this finalized so that at our next meeting we can actually vote on this. But that's my personal opinion on this. Let's just deal with one at a time. So let's deal with that one first.
Okay. I'll go to Ward 1. Selena, do you have any further comment?
No, I wanted to hear, I thought we were going to hear from Code regarding whether they were here and what guidance we were supposed to give them, or where are they in the process, and if they understand what they need to do next.
Scott, if it's okay with the vice mayor, I would second that. I think it would be helpful to hear from staff first so I can understand it better.
Sure.
If that's okay.
Yep. Latasha, is Code here today with us? I think I see Alma.
This is Alma. I'm here.
Do you have any?
Yes, for 3405, we do have Mr. Is the lawyer Mr. Hijazi is with us?
Yes, this is Abdullah
Okay.
Hijazi. I'm on the line.
Okay, so the latest we know from the design review board is that they wanted to meet with them again to make sure that the changes that they had talked about were actually something that was changed in the plans. So where are we in regards to that? I guess the design review board wanted to know if, you wanted to meet with them again, or what I guess your future plans with that.
So yes, the applicant and the architect are both on the line as well. We have met with the design review board once, as you know, and the architect was given instructions to make changes. She made changes and submitted them on March 4th. And Ms. Angeli can talk about the specifics of those changes as well and what was requested by the design review board. Then we received a notice of the next design review board meeting on the same day as the meeting itself. So all of us missed the actual design review board meeting. So we would just ask that if we are going to be sent into another design review board meeting, that we get notice at least like a day or two ahead of time, because the notices of the same day notices have been problematic, and just getting everybody there and not missing it. But I will also add that we believe that we have made the changes, but we have no problem listening to the design review board again and seeing what other changes need to be made, especially since this process, the building permit process, has been going on since October of last year, and the construction basically has been held up on this addition for about, well, actually more than 6 months at this point.
Okay. Thank you, Abdullah. Are there, Brian, when was the next design review board meeting scheduled for?
Well, they've been scheduling special meetings for these variances because they realize that these folks have been held up a long time. So they can meet whenever they decide to. Usually, I think they meet on the second Thursday, Alma. I think it's the second Thursday or second Wednesday.
Second Thursday of the month,
Yeah.
yes.
Yeah, but they can meet earlier than that because obviously, well, that's coming up pretty fast. But anyway, so they need to get with the owner, architect, attorney, and figure out a date that they can meet. Or if the design review board can just come up with a date, then hopefully the three of them can be there virtually. And yes, you should have better notice than a day or the same day. That's not acceptable. I don't know the background on that one, but let's get this meeting done so we can move your project.
Okay. Is there anyone from the design review board on tonight's call? Okay. Who is going to go back to the design review board to have them schedule this meeting as soon as possible?
I'll work on it.
I will
Or
do that.
whichever. We'll get him going.
Sorry, I was on mute, but I was, I'm with A-Line Architecture. I'm Eli Angeli. I'm with the design team. I was present on the first meeting, and we discussed and we saw what the issues were. The most important was the front overhang, which unnecessarily caused this, an additional variance. The other variances are necessary because of the unique shape and it's existing. So we're basically reconstructing the house on existing foundations. So we revised and removed and reformatted or readjusted the second floor so that the overhang was not shown, or it was eliminated. And then there were comments about the articulation of the columns, tapered columns, more in style, perhaps stone material and more texture. There were approval or acceptance and of the windows, the fenestrations. They like the windows. And so the majority of the review board had no issues with the second floor because it was basically, it's impossible to reach the program and be compatible and have the right house, standard, not substandard, to kind of raise the family. So the second floor was necessary. Yeah. But I think we discussed all of this, and it was our understanding that elimination of the variance, working with materials, and enhancing the porch and the columns more to the size and the scale was something that they were looking for. So we did that, and we resubmitted on March 4th.
Thank you, Anita. We really appreciate that. We're not going to get into the details of it here. What we are going to do is make sure that the design review board gets something scheduled with you guys immediately. We do apologize for the lack of notice that happened before, but we are going to get something scheduled immediately for that to get worked out. And so I think that's the path forward that the mayor and council are going to take at this time, absent any objection.
So I would just suggest that if you all could, if we can get the design review board to meet with them quickly, we could hold a special legislative meeting on the third Tuesday before or after our work session to deal with this issue, because they have been held up for months.
Yeah.
So, but that would entail them getting that meeting done and then getting the DRB getting their recommendation to us before that meeting.
So let's try to make that happen, Alma and Brian. That would be helpful. I'm fine with setting up that legislative special meeting on the third Tuesday.
Sure, we'll do.
And thank you guys for being here for this meeting tonight, and we'll try to get that worked out soon.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
This is Abdullah Ajazi. For reference, I'll say that our Board of Appeals meeting has been postponed twice now, and our next meeting date is now April 28th. I personally am open to meeting with the DRB even this week if possible, so that we can try to get this done before our next Board of Appeals meeting.
Yeah.
Otherwise, we would face another continuance again.
Right.
Thank you. We'll try to get that meeting done and then have something passed here at our legislative session on the 20th.
Yeah, that should give you.
Thank you.
Yep. Thank you, guys.
Okay, so 3710 34th, you have the recommendation from the design review board in your packet. I drafted a letter assuming that since they've recommended that we support the variances, that I went ahead and drafted a letter just to speed this up. And the revised, they met and did revisions on the proposal, which is also in your packet and will be attached to the letter that goes to the Board of Zoning Appeals. The concern keeps coming up with the board that we're approving variances before the actual building permits have been done at the county. And so that's why I added the paragraph that we're going to have this on file, and our code compliance folks would review the final approved building permits from the county to make sure that what we approved here this evening is reflected in what actually happens in the end. I think we need to start doing that because we've had this problem in the past where we approved a variance, and then when the actual building was built with the permits, it didn't necessarily reflect totally what we had thought we were agreeing to. And that's just a matter of the way the process works. And so that's why the letter was worded the way it is. But Alma, if you could let us know whether there's any of the parties on the call, because I don't know the names. I apologize for that.
Yes, we actually do have someone, and I think it's both the realtor and their lawyer are both here. Am I correct, Mr. Farrar?
Yes, ma'am, that is correct.
Okay.
Yes. For the record, Bradley Farrar. I'm with the law offices of Shipley and Horn, and my address is 1101 Mercantile Lane, Suite 240 in Largo, Maryland. I want to thank the city and the design review board for their assistance in helping to deliver a project for the city. This project, as you noted, has been delayed for a very long time, but we're committed to making the changes that we agreed to with the design review board, and we support the cities, once we come and get our permits from the city, the review of those permits from the city, again, to make sure it conforms. And we're supportive of that as well. So I want to thank you for this support letter. And hopefully, again, we're similarly postured as the earlier applicant in that the record for the Board of Zoning Appeals was held open pending the decision of the city council. So we have to go back on the 28th as well. So again, we appreciate your support with this matter.
Thank you.
And Luke, if I could just add, I just want I don't know if the prior folks are still there, but we don't ordinarily do it this way. Ordinarily, this would have gone to work session and then come to a public meeting. So we are trying to be as lenient as we can to get these. We understand the delays, and that's why we put this on this meeting, which is a little bit unusual, but that's the way we worked it out. I just want to mention in the design reviews letter, because somebody might be questioning this, they are adding a second story to a bungalow. However, as the design review pointed out, the houses on that block, most of them are 2-story. This is the last bungalow that hasn't had a second story added to it. So that's one of the reasons why they felt that they could support doing this. I think there was something about the slope of the roof or something. Anyway, you have the letter of recommendation if you would like to look at that. But at this point, I am going to move that we support this variance and send the letter that I drafted along with the attaching the revised plans and the design review board's recommendation.
Second.
Is there any objection? Hearing none, let's get that letter out. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay,
Luke,
moving. Yes.
just one comment regarding this, so we could put it not specifically the addresses, but if code could add in their checklist a box that for them to review after the licenses and stuff have been approved with the county. It will ask for us to make sure that this is standard practice from now on for them to come back to the city and verify that the plans are what they presented to us, including the variance. And so I'll ask Latasha to work with the team to add that as part of a check mark in the procedures that are being held now. Thank you.
Is there any objection to that recommendation to staff? Okay. Thank you, Latasha. Thank you, Selena. All right, we are on to old business, Ordinance 03-2021, budgeting and financial procedures. This is our second reading of this ordinance to provide that certain fees received but unspent in any fiscal year are reappropriated for the same purpose in the proposed annual budget for the succeeding year submitted to the mayor and council by the city manager. It does not mean that those proposed reappropriated fundings have to get spent. It allows the mayor and council discretion to change the budget as they see fit. It just stipulates that that proposed reapportionment is in the proposed budget that the mayor and council receive every year. I will turn it over to Brian to give a fair reading of this legislation.
You just did.
Then I can get a motion to approve Ordinance 03-2021, introduced by Councilmember Nedler.
So moved.
Can I get a second? Will anyone second, or is the motion going to die?
You can second it.
I'll second the motion. Does anyone object to the motion?
Just ask if there's any public comment.
That's right. I should open up for discussion before we vote. Is there any discussion from the public or mayor or the council members?
This is Selena. Can you guys please list what committees are we talking about in sense of transparency, so that way it's known that it's not all of them, it's the specific ones?
It's the tree commissions, the mitigation fee, and the tree replacement fee, which goes to tree replacements, and then the arts commission and the bike co-op, because we were a pass-through, and the don't know if we were going to add the community garden. I'm not sure that's in the ordinances, so I don't know how we can do that, but
yeah, I don't think they're charging fees anymore from a listserv message that I got, so that might not be a need anymore. And only thus, if they're charging fees, it falls into what the city puts forward. So it's a little bit different for that one, at least in my reading.
Yeah, community garden. Okay. Thank you, John, or whoever's scrolling. Community garden is in there. We did add that after the last conversation. I'd forgotten about that.
Okay. Is there any further discussion? Any comment from the public?
Yeah, I didn't second the motion because I just haven't. There are good and bad reasons to do this, in my opinion, or potentially good and potentially bad consequences. So I'm still really riding the fence on this, to be honest. I do appreciate that you added the community garden, though. so I'm leaning towards voting yes. But if the three of you have the votes to carry this, then I may abstain because I just honestly am feeling very on the fence about it.
Okay.
I mean, I understand the intent, but I'm more inclined for us to simply try to be better about budgeting and using budget amendments. We need to change the amount of budget of line items and that sort of thing. But I can see the benefit to this too. I'm just kind of on the fence, so I may abstain.
So, Luke, if I may, Scott, I mean, this is basically, I would call it an experiment. And we do this often with our ordinances. We try something. If it doesn't work, you all can nix it as soon as it doesn't work. But I think I mean, we do try a lot of things like this. And sometimes, I mean, most of the time they work out. So I'm hopeful. But certainly if it becomes a headache, I would support, repealing it. But for now, I'm in support of it.
And, I will just say, to your point, Scott, I think that the status quo has not worked because the status quo relies on budget amendments or relies on the mayor or council members to remember that they have to figure out ways to move funding forward in years. And from my perspective, institutionalizing what needs to happen for those three committees is important to address the problems with the status quo. That's all.
Luke?
Go ahead, Selena.
I understand for the first three committee, the garden committee, the reason why I said this because they're no longer charging fees, so I don't see how this will apply to them. So I think they're just there for being there. I understand the other three because the money is directly going for, if you're telling people you're collecting money for this specific purpose, which is like, the trees, or we're putting budget aside to make sure we have the maintenance covered in case something happens to the mural, that makes sense to me, at least for those three committees, the first three, right? Mainly because you're saying that you're collecting the money specifically to take care of the trees based on the fact that they were cut or, to plant them, right? So that's where I'm like, I'm willing to go for a yes for the first three, but the garden committee, I don't see it. And I think the bike, the bike, I'm a little bit on the fence, right? But I'm willing to do the bike, but I think the garden, it's not that it's a break off for me, but I think the garden committee, since they no longer pick up fees, it's like, it's just there, but there's no purpose for it to be there.
I have a question.
Go ahead. Is that Latasha?
Work if yes. How does this work if the committee is in the negative? Will the negative balance carry over? So to give you an example, the bike co-op, they had us, I can't remember the exact number that was put into the budget. And the concept, the idea is that they bring money into the city to kind of help support their budget line. However, this year they didn't bring in nearly any of the money. So their account is actually in the negative because they've spent more on parts than actual money that they've brought into the city.
So Latasha, if you read the language, it says that you would only have to put in revenues that were collected and unspent. So if they have collected no revenues, then you wouldn't need to put that in.
Right. So I think that, and I hear you, and I understand that, Brian. I understand it. But I don't know that the committee will understand that. You understand what I'm saying? So like just hypothetically, right? So that means that they would, let's say if we were at June 30th today, that means that nothing would go into the next budget for them in terms of money that they brought in.
Well,
but
okay,
they're
so
operating.
It's not money that they, okay, this is about the fees they collect. This is not about, are you talking about because we're doing renovations on the building?
No. I'm just saying in general, They haven't, no, their money has been, the renovation of their building is not coming out of their budget.
Right.
The money that's coming out of their budget is money that they have spent on parts. They have spent more money on parts, which actually their budget line, they're over their budget, but they have not brought in.
Then it would just be zero for the coming year
No.
if the city manager
Right.
decides to do that.
Well, I don't want to confuse. I just threw that out there. I mean, it's not, I don't have a dog in this fight, but I just wanted to like kind of put that out there. Like sometimes some of the committees and I know that this was a rare occasion because, we're in COVID, but it could happen again. I'm just saying that not all of them bring in the money that you may think they bring in.
Luke?
That's good to know. I want to make sure we go around and give everybody a fair chance at the second round. Scott, do you have anything further you want to add?
I'd rather hear from the others first, just because I don't know how I'm going to vote.
Okay. Selena?
Yeah, I think that at least, and I thought about that as well, Latasha, especially if they're over, right? Let's say their budget line item was 1,030 at 1,500. So what do you do for next year? Do you give them $500 to make up the fact that they were over $500? I think that's part of also like the question that we'll be asking, or do you automatically give them another 1,000 plus whatever else they brought up, even if it doesn't make the difference from what they're over, right? That's what I told you. Like the first three, I understand, because like the money's collected for that, money's aside to make repairs, right? But the other two, I'm not seeing it the same way as like the mitigation fee or the maintenance budget for the murals. To me, I see like the maintenance budget for the murals part of the project that is going to be there, like that's going to ideally put there if we possibly can, right? This is not saying that mandatory we need to put $20,000, because if we don't have the money to put it, we're not going to obviously fire people to get those 20,000. So so that's where I'm like, when it comes to the other two committees, that I feel that the city gives them like quite a bit of money to do the things that they need to do, right? And this is something that they do every year. So even if it brings little money in, right, it doesn't even comes close to the allocated line item that that we give them yearly.
I will just say that I agree with the legislation as written. I think that, if folks are bringing in money and we're serving as a pass-through, or if they will in the future, I think it's helpful that money is there for them. But I understand I agree with kind of what Brian said. The committees just need to be on notice that if they spend it down and there's nothing left, there is nothing that's going to be carried over for them. And so we should put the committees on notice of that reality. I think that's a good point from Latasha. Scott, did you have anything you want to say now?
Brian, it's definitely well-crafted, well-written piece of legislation. So thank you. And I know that a lot of work has gone into this from you and others. Is this binding in the sense that like we have to pass this money forward from one line item to the other for next budget? Like we're still going to have total discretion to craft the budget just like we would without passing this. Is that correct?
Correct. Yeah. This all it does is a reminder that there was leftover money. If there's no leftover money, it's going to be zero unless the city manager decides otherwise. But this does not bind us or a future council at all that it can change the numbers. This is basically a reminder, placeholder. Okay.
I apologize to you also for just not fully understanding this, even up till this point, even though we've talked about it several times. So apologies for that. I appreciate everyone's words and explanations. I'm pretty sure that I understand the distinction that Selena is making between the various bodies. I think 2 of the 4. I understand the distinction she's making, but I don't know that it matters for me. So I am willing to vote yes. I know we need 3 votes to pass this, so I will come through for you, and I plan to vote yes. Thank you.
Okay. There is a motion on the floor, and it has been seconded. All those in favor, please say aye.
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 Aye. Opposed?
Abstain.
Okay, the measure passes. Ordinance 03-2021, budgeting and financial procedures. Okay, ordinance 04-2021, budget amendment, number 1. Latasha, I'm going to turn this over to you. Brian, if you could please go on mute. I think there's somebody's not on mute, and I'm seeing you as the only one. Thank you.
Thanks, Luke. So this ordinance is ordinance 04-2021, budget amendment 1. It's a budget amendment to amount increase in revenue, account number 4799-00. Description is the funds from reserves. They will go to the general fund reserves. The current budget is $0. The adjusted is $600,000. We will increase in expenditures for account 5706-010, property acquisition, and we'll put that under city council budget to acquire property at $600,000, and this is to amend the FY21 budget for the purchase of property at 3503 and 3505 Perry Street.
Thank you. Any discussion? I'll start with Ward. Oh, Scott, I see your hand raised, so we'll go to Ward 2. Go ahead.
Oh, my bad. Thank you for recognizing me. Latasha, I think that I'm just remembering this wrong. So the money's coming from reserves, which, as I recall, is our savings account. But I thought that we had decided to pull funds from one of the city's investment accounts to pay for this.
It is the investment account.
This is the investment account. Okay.
Yeah, we know the difference. It's the investment account. It's not your savings, so to speak. All of it is your savings account, but this is your investment.
I understand what you're saying. Yeah, thank you for answering that. That was all I had, Luke. Thank you.
Thank you, Scott. I'll continue with Ward 2, Brian.
Thank you for putting this together. I think the public is aware at this point that we are purchasing the property across the street with the parking lot. The only thing I see is it says after your little table to amend the budget for the purchase of 3503, probably want to add 3505 in that. This is a first reading, right? Is this a resolution?
This is the second reading.
It's a second reading? Oh, that's right. We did a special. I thought we changed that.
No, it's second reading.
Well, we're going to have to add the other address. It's a typo. It's not a big deal.
Yeah. Well, we can definitely add it in the signed copy.
I mean, it's not going to affect the actual sale, but it's just that for public record, we should show that we were buying 2 properties, not 1.
Yeah.
That's all. Otherwise, I'm good. Thank you.
Thank you. Selena?
Motion to approve.
Second. Good job, Selena.
You're welcome.
Are there any objections to the motion? Any comment from the public?
So point order. You need 4 votes to do a budget amendment, so you probably want to do this not an actual vote.
Right. Yep. Thank you, Brian. Appreciate that. Good reminder. Okay, I will open it up for discussion. Is there any comments from the public?
I see nothing as of right now.
Thank you, John. Any comments from council? All those in favor, please say aye.
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 Hearing everyone in favor, the measure passes. Ordinance 04-2021, budget amendment number 1. On to new business. Ordinance 05-2021, amendments to Chapter 7, licenses and permits. This is dealing with temporary storage units. Brian, I will turn it over to you.
Oh, I got to remember what this one is. Let me look at it myself. I'm sorry. I've done too many of these now. We're consolidating because temporary storage units were in 3 different places. And so we're consolidating them all under licenses and permits because you have to have a permit to have one. But it was also found in the building code and also in streets, I think the streets chapter. So this is bringing everything together, brought the language from those other chapters here. It defines temporary storage unit. You wanted it to include construction. It's not the right version, guys. We put construction dumpsters back in. I just noticed that. Yeah, so this is just a first reading, but the city attorney added construction dumpsters back in because you all wanted to do that. So wherever you see it struck out, it's actually there. I apologize. I did not see that until just now, because that was the big thing you wanted, was a construction dumpster to be remaining in the ordinance. So we'll have to do an amendment and second reading with the other version of this. This must be the old version. My bad. Otherwise, everything pretty much is the way that we discussed before, with the exception of adding construction dumpster back into it so that it will reflect that as well. Apologies.
Luke, you're so quiet.
Yeah, I know. So I'm just trying to think about what to do. So are we just skipping over this one for now?
No, we can do a first reading. This is a first reading. We don't have to vote on it. We just have to first reading.
Okay.
That was the first reading, so for the next meeting, you just discuss it, but it'll be the newer version.
Yeah, sorry. It's probably my fault. I didn't send the newer version to John, so I take responsibility.
Okay. How do you want to start this discussion off? I mean, I feel like we've talked about this a lot. I was comfortable with where we landed after the work session. Or I don't know if that was the work session or legislative session, whatever the last time is we talked about this. I think I was comfortable with where we were heading. So I'll turn it over to Brian. Is there anything you want to add or call out for us to?
No, I just want to say that, we're basically consolidating sections into one place to make it easier for code compliance to deal with all these various. And it basically, we had one section for public streets. We had another section for private property. This consolidates it all into one spot.
Yeah, that's right. That's how I remember it. I'll start with Ward 1 this time. Selena, do you have any comments?
No, thank you for putting this together. I think it definitely will make code's life a little bit easier, but also the public, the community as a whole, because going through the code and trying to find, this item like all over the whole entire code, it makes it a little bit hard. And depending what part of the chapter, it feels like a little, I don't want to say misleading, but it could confuse people very much. The other thing, it allows for us to be able to do a one flyer sheet to be able to put in the newsletter for the staff to hand to the community when, for information purpose. So I'm very happy to see your budget line items getting crossed out, your bucket list, Brian. So thank you for that. I look forward to a couple more to get crossed out. Hopefully we could finish your whole list.
All right, Scott.
Yeah, I think as I recall, I think we sort of reached consensus on this at a previous work session. So looking forward to the second reading and voting yes. Brian, I know you will do this, but just stating it, just make sure we have the most updated version. I'd like to read it one more time before we vote on it. And if I see anything that I have questions on or I want to change, then I'll just ask for it to be put on the next work session for 5 minutes. But I'm pretty sure it's good to go. So looking forward to voting on this in the, I guess at the May legislative meeting.
Yeah, I'll send the correct version tomorrow. I'm really sorry.
Yeah, no worries. It happens.
Okay. Is there any discussion from the public on this item? Okay. Hearing none, we'll move to Ordinance 06-2021, amendments to Chapter 3A City Code.
So this works in tandem with the other one. And by the way, both of them won't become effective until July 1st. Because this, again, we're taking the temporary storage unit pieces out of this chapter and moving it to the permits chapter. This ordinance also corrects the version of the International Property Code that we're using, which is the 2018 version. It cross-references, and so it provides priorities for code compliance in a new section. And it also They're in our code. We have exceptions to the International Property Maintenance Code. And so what I've done is instead of repeating everything, I just cross-reference to the sections of our code that deal with those issues. For instance, the Vice Mayor, a few meetings back, had got a ordinance passed about native habitats, and so we're cross-referencing the landscaping to the landscaping section because the International Property Maintenance Code doesn't allow for what we adopted. So that's just like cross-referencing to make it easier. And then the temporary storage units is coming out of here, and you can see it's all crossed out, but that language has now been added to the licenses and permits. And then, the fee schedule, the violation penalties were changed. That's right, because there was concern about the amounts that we had in the prior code. So those have been lowered.
Brian, I'll start with, where am I now? To Ward 2, Scott.
Good to go. I was thinking about this earlier today. Actually, I do have one thing, so I'm not good to go. I was thinking about this earlier today, and the thought that sort of struck me was, Brian's been kind of on this tear, and he's got a list of things. I really wanted to get these legislative things done before I leave the council, and we're getting to them all. And I don't want that momentum to stop. It's looking like it's going to be the three of us, Luke and Selena, and a candidate who's running uncontested for the Ward 2 seat for Brian C. So it looks like it's going to be us. And I just wanted to say to the two of you, I really hope that over the next couple of years, we can find a way to take the time to go through our whole city code, whether that's like one chapter a month or once a quarter, we do a chapter of the city code until we get through the whole thing. But I think we need to do scour the whole thing top to bottom and just make sure that it's up to date, make sure that we, if there are any fixes that need to be made, we can do those. I feel like Brian has really kicked off that work for us this year. And I think that it'd be great if the three of us could take that baton and sort of run with it and make something happen with the code. So, the mayor and I talked for 2 years about the charter review committee. We weren't able to get that done. So I just am looking forward to, on paper, cleaning up our governance so that we can continue to improve the city's governance. And so, Brian, thanks for your leadership in starting that process. And I see Selena's chat. It's a lifetime commitment. It's an ongoing process. There's probably never going to be a time where we're like, okay, the code's been amended, we're good for forever. It's always going to be changing. And I just want to make sure that we have that intentionality of continuing this work of just kind of making fixes and cleaning things up. So once again, just thanks, Brian. I'll be voting yes when we get to it on this.
Thank you, Scott. Selena?
Definitely, thank you. And when I say, Brian, you have a lifetime commitment, I was thinking more also of a sense like, you're not going that far, Brian. We know where you live. But also, I think that, if I'm being very persistent when it comes to code director, it's because of this, because I know Brian has taken upon himself to be able to do this. Some of the time, most of the time, the reasons why we're changing some things in code because it's a complaint from the community. But I also feel like if you have a director and you have a team to be able to lead this work, it will allow for us to for them to read through and say, this is not working, the community, this is it. So before it gets boiling over to us and we have to try to amend it, a solution is there. And that's the reason why I think we need to set up that team, and, us trying to just get inspectors and send them out with marching orders, it's just not going to work. And I've been seeing it for at least the last, year and a half. It hasn't worked, and I think that, we could continue going chapter by chapter, and it's like a live document. That's the reason why it's called a live document, because as we change things and as we progress, as climate change continues to go through, we're seeing importance in certain things, kind of like the native network. Maybe a few years ago, it would have been interested to some people. Now we have a lot more buy-in from certain people to be able to do this. So in saying that, it's we definitely need to start, thinking about what team is going to also lead that effort aside from us. Yes, we like legislation, but there are people that work in the ground to be able to say this is working and not wait until it boils up to us.
Thank you, Selena. Yeah, I really appreciate those comments, guys. My recommendation would be going into next year. Let's set up almost like a task force. There are a few residents who I've emailed with who seem interested in this subject of just the code in general. And I've asked them if would be interested in doing this sort of top-down review. And I think if we could get a few residents who would be committed, one of us to take the lead, and staff to help out to just come up with do that top-down review, bring it to the mayor and council and say, hey, this is how things should work. This is what we think. I think that'd be a really good way to go. And it would, be a way to use some of that capacity we have from residents to maybe help out where we don't have that capacity. And I think if you're really thoughtful about how you schedule that process, I think it's something we could absolutely get done. So I would support that 100%. So thanks, Scott, for bringing it up, and Selena for talking about that. Brian?
So I appreciate all the kind words, guys. I had a lot of this in the rolling agenda. There's probably more in there that I'm not going to get to. For instance, I had rewritten a draft for the parking zone ordinance, but we're just not going to get to it. And so I would be willing to serve on that committee. I know this code inside and out. I know there are things in there that are from the 1930s that are zoning issues that we don't even have authority, that are just junk in our code that just confuses people. So I'm willing to help make a list and work with other residents to do that. So thank you.
Thank you, Brian. Any comment from the public on this? I think I already went to the public. Okay, we are at Ordinance 07-2021, approval of FY 2022 tax rates and budget. Latasha, the show is all yours.
Yes. So let me go back. I'm sorry. I'm controlling the screen, so I got to get my bearings. Here we go. All right. So this was an ordinance, if you recall, this is the ordinance to establish the tax rate, also to adopt the budget and appropriate funds. So as you know, you guys have to look at the budget again. This is the first read, but I will say I'll leave it to you if you want to do the first read or if you want to skip this and do the first read at your May 4th, because I'm not sure that you'll be ready to adopt on May, for the second reading. Does that make sense what I'm saying?
Yeah, I understand. I would like to do the first reading now.
Works for me.
If there's not, is there any objection from that? I think I would like to do the first reading now because I really don't like to put on any new council members passing the budget. So to the extent we can get this done before then, I think that's the best thing to do.
Sounds good. So I'll do a quick little summary. So this is basically an ordinance establishing a tax rate, adopting the annual budget and appropriating funds for fiscal year 2022, beginning July 1, 2021 and ending June 30th, 2022. The real property tax rate, I'll just start there. The real property tax rate shall be 81 cents per $100 of the assessed valuation. The tax rate for townhomes, residential property is 81 cents per $100. The tax rate for all multifamily residential real property is 86 cents per $100 of the assessed valuation. The tax rate for all commercial properties shall be 81 cents per $100 of assessed valuation. The tax rate for industrial real property shall be 81 cents per $100 of the assessed valuation. The tax rate for all vacant developed real property shall be $2.50 per $100 of assessed valuation. The tax rate for business property shall be 99 cents per $100 of assessed valuation, and the tax rate for operating property of railroads and public utilities shall be $2.75 per $1 of the assessed valuation. So the budget, the revenues is $8,678,243, and the expenditures is the same, $8,678,243, and that constitutes a first read.
Thank you, Latasha. And I have a question before I go to everybody else. Does the budget that we just had a first reading on, does it include the changes that we recommended during our work session?
Yeah.
Okay.
That's why it's jumped to 8 million.
Okay. And for the mayor and council, for right now, do we want to talk about those things right now and review them to see if it's good? I want to ask a question for the council.
I believe there's a separate meeting scheduled for that. John, when is the next budget meeting?
April the 20th will be the next public hearing.
Okay. So is there any need right now to do anything? I saw Selena's hand raised, so I'll go to Selena first. But that's the questions I'd like for folks to consider about what we could, if anything, do tonight to make that meeting easier, or if you just want to skip over any conversation tonight and save it for then, I'd just like to know your pleasure. So Selena, I'll start with you.
Natasha, can you clarify a little bit for the public when it comes to the tax interest rate for all the ones that you read? Were any of them changed from
No.
FY21, or are they all staying the same?
No, everything is the same.
In the meeting, we had discussed potentially lowering the what's it called, the single family homes tax. Is that already being considered? Is that going to be proposed for next meeting for you to show us the numbers? And would that affect anything that has to do with this reading?
So that's a loaded question. In your next budget meeting, everything that you requested will be addressed in that April 20th meeting. And as I indicated before I read this, that those numbers are going to change. That you may not end up with an $8.6 million budget. So yes, it will be different. That's why
and the only reason why I asked is because, the question that's asked of us is, if our numbers are in stone, right? Like, so that means we're no longer cutting the taxes or whatever it is. So I want to make sure it's clear, and thank you for, emphasizing it once again, that those numbers could potentially change in the next meeting. So thank you for that.
Okay. I'll start with Brian in Ward 2. Do you have any thoughts on what to do tonight, or what you'd like to do tonight?
So just procedurally, Latasha, so are you going to give us like a version with the 1% drop in the single family home rate so we can see what that looks like well before that meeting? I'm assuming, knowing you would do that. So we can kind of, because we haven't actually voted on whether we're going to lower the rate or not. So it's kind of hard on you because you're going to have to come up with two different versions to show that to us. The other thing is, I had some emails with our grant writer today. We need to make sure that there's the matching money for the spring park in there somewhere, and I don't think we did that. I don't think it needs to be 40,000 because we probably won't get this project off the. We'll get it off the ground, but I don't think it'll be completed by the end of the next fiscal year. But you just need to keep that in mind. Other than that, I just look forward to seeing the revisions. And of course, we'll have more revisions and have to do amendments at the second.
Yeah, I would jump in with a recommendation there, Brian, so that Latasha doesn't have to write two different budgets. Perhaps she could just let us know what a 1% reduction equals to in funding, and then it's up to us. If we want to cut taxes, we have to figure out a way to cut the revenue side so that it would be on us as opposed to on her.
Fair point.
So I think, Latasha, for your end, you just have to calculate what a 1 cent reduction in the single family tax rate. It would have to be the single family and townhome tax rate, what that equals from a revenue loss perspective, and make us deal with how to cut that on the expenditure side. Okay. Scott, are there questions from you?
Yes. Luke, thank you for what you just said. What I would like to have, if possible, is something that I saw a few years ago when I was a resident at a council meeting. So probably exactly 3 years ago, or exactly 2 years ago from now. there was a spreadsheet that allowed for in real time to plug in different tax rates and show how it impacted revenue. So if we could have that, that would be helpful. I'm really great with spreadsheets. I'm happy to help build it if that's needed, but it would be nice to be able to play around with that. I've given this more thought since our last meeting, or since our first budget meeting, which I think was about 2 weeks ago, as I'm sure you all have as well. And there's a long way to go for me to get to a yes. And one of them is that I think we have to lower property taxes, and we might have to do it for more than just single family homes. I'm a little bit worried about whether or not we've reached the deadline of when we can do that. But if we haven't, I think we have to take a serious look at it. You guys get all the information I get, but I just saw a housing market report that showed that assessments are going up on average like 10%. So everyone, if the tax rates stay the same, every homeowner in the city, and then by extension, a lot of the renters are going to see an increase in their housing costs pretty significantly. And just with the current state of the economy, I know things are trending positively and we're all hopeful for the future, but I just think so many people have been hurt. And if we can lower their property taxes, I think we should. And Luke, I think you're correct that it's incumbent on us more than it is the city manager to figure out where we would need to cut if we have lower revenues. And I'll just say quickly, in addition to wanting to lower property taxes, potentially across the board if we can, I'm not going to commit to that because I don't even know if it's possible. But I would like to have that discussion. I also, just to reiterate for anyone in the public who's watching that didn't see our budget meeting, a couple of the other things that I would like to see changed. I'm not going to support purchasing internal combustion vehicles for our police department now or in the future, and that's in accordance with our climate resolution. I believe our social services coordinator needs to be full-time, or if that person can only work part-time, then we look at what the budget would look like by adding another social services coordinator, whether they're full or part-time. I'm not thrilled about how we're funding certain committees, and particularly events and holidays. But that's just my personal opinion on that. So looking forward to discussions on those. And then I also think we're underfunding our community garden and our tree commission. So I realize I'm asking for more funding, but also saying we should lower taxes. So in fairness, it's going to be hard to do both of those things or all the things I just listed if we lower taxes. So I'm just looking forward to working with you all to figuring out, can we lower our taxes? If so, by how much? And will we still be able to do all these other things that I know you guys want to do? You have your own projects that you'd like to do as well. So that's just kind of where I'm at with the budget in general. And I'm looking forward to our future meetings.
Thanks, Scott. Brian?
So just a reminder that owner-occupied single-family homes are eligible for the homestead tax credit, which caps the increase in their taxes. And we have proposed lowering that ceiling. I think we're at 10%. We could lower it lower, so that would would cap the amount that this tax would affect them. In other words, even though the value of their house went up, it could only go up a certain amount, which could be 5, 8, 9, whatever percent you wanted it to be. That would help the owner occupied. I think in the past, our philosophy and why we went to these different tax categories was that we wanted to try to discourage single family homes being rentals. But if you don't agree with that, then you need to change the tax rate, because the homestead tax credit is not applicable to those particular buildings or houses. The other thing I think we need to do is we need to promote, because I heard a couple people this evening that were speaking, they've lived here more than 30 years. We lowered the eligibility for the long-term resident tax credit, which I believe was 40. We lowered it to 30, but I don't think we've really very well promoted that. And so there are probably people out there that would be eligible for that don't know it. So I think that's a task for you all going forward. I think the deadline's already passed for that, but for the following year, to really promote, we are doing innovative things here. And we often have done things that nobody else has done, like doing the piggyback on the homeowner's tax credit and adding, to the amount that our low-income folks get. So just keep that in mind, that we have these wonderful tools that we've got, but we don't necessarily are very good about communicating. And I'm shouting out to our communications guy. about these wonderful, innovative things that we've done in the past. Thanks.
Thank you, Brian. I will say very happy with Finance and Latasha for getting us to this point with the budget. I think if we have all the questions answered that we put in that we had at the meeting, and then I think I followed up with an email. I don't know if anybody else followed up with that, but I think that touched on all our points. The only thing that I forgot to mention at the Saturday meeting that I meant to, and it was, I touched on it in a question about what is the $100,000 for streets and sidewalks, and I think the answer is it's all streets and sidewalks. But I was looking for $11,000, which would be the cost for implementing the bike plan for Bunker Hill Road to connect the bike lane in DC on Eastern Avenue with our bike co-op and the planned lane in PG County there for 38th Street. Ours would go to just have sharrows and signage along Bunker Hill. Initially, when I brought this to the council's attention in December to plan for the budget, we thought the cost would be $26,000, somewhere around there, north of $20,000. And actually, Jarrett, who is coming on as the running for Ward 2, he was the person who helped write this initial plan for the city back in 2010. And I went back to him and I said, this looks like it's going to cost a lot of money. Doesn't sound right to me that you would have that many signs and that many sharrows. And he said, oh, that's because this is based on, the estimate we got is based on the county plan, which is based on having a number of sharrows and a number of signage per block. And in a city our size, where our blocks are smaller than what you'd see in perhaps Upper Marlboro or Bowie, we don't need that many signs and sharrows. And so that's why the Mount Rainier Bike Master Plan doesn't call for as many sharrows and signage. So there was a confusion in the quote. Going with what we actually need, the cost is down to $11,000 for that. And so that will be something that I will be looking for. And I think there was 3 votes for that back when we talked about it in December, but it's even less money than I talked about then, which is good news on that front. But that's something I didn't want to hide the ball on and wanted to make sure I got out there tonight, because I remembered that I asked the question, then I didn't follow up with explaining what the dollar figure was Saturday. So I'm doing that now. And I think that's it for me. Anyone else? Selena?
Yeah, I think that's the reason that I asked, what the money for the speed camera could be used, and if it could be used for roads and sidewalks, which will allow for us to be able to free some money. If we could put some of that money into the roads and sidewalks, it will free some money for us to be able to support the bike project as well, like the bike routes. So that's what I was looking into, because remember, there's money that was collected this year. So if we choose to, that's one of the things I want to talk in the next work sessions. Like if we choose to, we could do a budget amendment if need be to like reallocate some of the money to start the work on that even this year, based on the money that was collected this year. So that way it will not have to wait until like the next upcoming year, but it's something that could start being done this year if we still have the possibility of doing it. Like you said, it's like 11, it's even less. So we might be able to move some money around, like, in order to like free some money from the safety cameras into the roads and highways, and from the roads and highways into the bike lane, in order to be able to build on it. But I'll tell you, like, the areas that Kamali said, they desperately need the help. The other areas that desperately need it too is like the streets behind Bunker Hill. Those streets are like in really bad condition. So those are the two big groups that are coming along. That's the reason why I'm all like, we could think about bikes, we could think about driving it, but if we're falling apart, like trying to walk, we're going to be in big trouble as well, because it's also having a lot of issues with the water retaining and creates unsafety sidewalks and unsafety streets for people to bike or even drive. But that's something to consider, so that way we could put that money aside in order to get this done, because I think it's needed. A lot of our residents do bike. So it's important for us to be able to make sure that they're biking safely where they need to go. And so other than that, I will also ask for, in the past, not only do we have the Excel sheet, right, but I think that also the city manager directors had come up with a couple things that they could see cut from their budget, in order for us to be able to have a better understanding of where the cuts could come as well and get the feedback from them directly. So it's not just cutting it out and it might be attached to something else they're working on or needs to happen. So that might be another recommendation I'll go ahead and make sure that there's the things are confirmed from the city manager directors when it comes to what could be potentially either cut or if it's covered by a grant, that money to be utilized differently. And at this point, we still don't know when we're going to get the funding from the American Relief Fund. That's also going to be able to help us out carry some of the projects that we need to do as well.
Okay, anyone else?
Yeah, I appreciate everything that Selena just said, and that point that you said at the end, Selena, was really important, which is we don't know when we're going to get money from the American Rescue Plan, and of course that affects how we should budget because we know that money's coming. So I want to make sure that we know going into our next budget meeting, if possible, 60 to 90 days. Thank you. I want to make sure that we know exactly what we can and cannot spend American Rescue Plan money on so that we can make some of those considerations. Because I think the fact that we have a couple of $1 million plus coming in from the American Rescue Plan is all the more reason why we should lower taxes now, even if we have to do budget amendments later to figure out how to reallocate some of those funds, which we're going to have to do anyway when that money comes in. So yeah, I just wanted to plant that flag firmly. Like, we got, in my opinion, we have to find a way to lower taxes. And like for Selena and Luke, I'm pretty sure, I've only lived here since 2018, but I'm pretty sure that like the two of you and Brian and Mayor Miles and Shivali, like you guys were lowering taxes every year, I'm pretty sure. Like, and then that continued into my first year on the council. I think last year we kept it the same as FY 2020, if I remember correctly. But like we were willing to lower taxes then, and right now when people need relief more than ever, I think is when we should really take a hard look at doing that. I don't have to tell the four of you or the three of you, the biggest complaint or comment that people say is how high the taxes are, how high the property taxes are here. They don't like it. And I think they're sending us a clear message that we should take a hard look at that. Brian was very right to point out the different tax credits that are available, homestead and then long-term resident. Those are great tools in the toolbox, but I think we need to do more. I don't want to dissuade renters. I'm a renter, and I help my landlord take very good care of the place that I live. And I think having affordable rents is important for people, especially in communities like ours. Hopefully President Biden will forgive my student loan debt, but until he does that, I can't afford to buy a house, and I never will be able to until that's gone. So I'm going to be a renter for the foreseeable future, and I want to make sure that I can afford to still live in Mount Rainier as a renter.
Thank you, Scott. Brian, anything?
No, just well taken points. I think the past philosophy on the rental houses, not the complexes, was that we had a lot of absentee landlords and we had a lot of problems with, rundown properties. I think that's changed over time, and so I don't want to say that. I think that consideration needs to change with times. But in the old days, we had a lot of derelict, we had a lot of empty buildings, and that is no longer true. So I think that the next council really needs to look at that and the the equity between the homeowners and the rental properties.
Thank you, Brian. And I would just say, since coming on the council, and this has been a shared interest of everybody on the council, lowering taxes has been a big priority, and I think we can probably do that again. I would be very hesitant to tie lowering taxes to a one-year stimulus, because that's 1 year. And when you get to the next year, you won't have that stimulus, and you're going to be stuck in a position where you're going to have to raise taxes. And I don't want the city to be stuck in that situation. I think that if we are willing to lower taxes, we need to lower our expenditures, because I think that's just the real choice. And I don't think we should avoid that choice. Because I think that the stimulus is going to be targeted for certain things, and we should spend it on those certain things, and be very wary of thinking that that money is going to be there in other years, and be very cautious about that. So that's all I'll say. Okay. Is there any public comment here?
Luke, it's Scott. Can I have the floor very briefly?
Sure.
I don't know if this is much of a correction, but because I don't know exactly how it works. But my understanding is that the American Rescue Plan funds are distributed over the course of like 2+ years. So it comes in installments. So all the points you made still stand, but it's not going to be like we're going to get $2 million this summer and we can spend it however we want. It comes in installments and the payments are restrictive. I just don't yet have a full understanding of how they're restricted.
Right, and MML has a decent website that spells out the broad themes. It seems to be, anyways, but there's going to be more guidance on that. I don't want to get into now.
Yeah, thank you for that. I'll go check that out. Thank you.
Yeah, it's still not, and I attended all the different meetings. Like you said, it's very broad strokes and they don't know the bolts and nuts of it yet. That's why, but we're thinking, from what we were told from our big meeting was 60 to 90 days we should know. And it will be sent to the state, and the state has 30 days to release the money to the smaller municipalities under 50,000 people, and that'll be us. So we could potentially figure out very soon what it is, but in the meantime, I do agree with you. Let's not tie it to that, because that might be like the only big one we have, and that's not going to hold us for much longer, especially with like increases on the things that we use and buy, including materials for street sidewalks, the maintenance of the trees and stuff like that. Those prices are also going up, and unfortunately the cost of living is going up. But I think we all have a shared interest in lower taxes, and Brian, I fully agree with you. I think like definitely a page to dedicate it just for credits will be great, and also send out, like in the past we did homestead credit. We send notices to every single home that could qualify. And Steven, till today, like 2 weeks ago, I was helping somebody fill out the application because they said they saw the letter but didn't realize what it meant. But so outreach from the city is going to have to be maximized to make sure that we're not only sending the letters but also like getting our hands and knocking those doors and helping those residents that do need it and might not understand what exactly it means.
Okay. Any comment from the public?
I have none right now.
Thank you, John. Okay. Moving to number 13, approval of minutes from previous council meetings. All right. Can I get a motion here to approve of the minutes from previous council meetings pending any adjustments made by council members or the mayor by close of business this Friday?
So moved.
Second.
Are there any objections? Hearing none. Next item, mayor, council, and city manager reports. I'll start with Ward 2. Brian?
I do not have a report. Thank you.
Okay, Selena? Sorry, Scott. Ward 2 still. Scott, sorry.
Actually, can you guys go first? I just want to grab a drink of water.
Yep. Selena? Did I lose you, Selena?
No, I'm here. I apologize. I was trying to get to the mute button. Just to remind people that elections are May 3rd. They are going to be held at Nature Center from 7 a.m. to 8. It was moved. The Board of Elections will be following all the COVID procedures. The absentee forms need to be turned in before the 26th. They have them in English and Spanish. They are in the website if anybody wants them. And City Hall also have them. There is going to be a meet and greet and two debates as well, everything virtually, that the city is going to be putting out the information. I think it's the 10, the 14, and there's one more I'm missing. John might be able to give us the answer because he's the liaison, but be on the lookout for that information if you choose to tune in. But that's basically my report, and we are going to have a food distribution this Thursday at 9 a.m. And we had a very successful food distribution on Tuesday at the firehouse as well. So, it's looking out pretty good for the next, month or two, maybe even 3, for us to continue to have food distributions on Tuesdays, 7:30 in the morning at the firehouse, and on Thursdays, 9:30 in front of Queenstown. And so that will be my report so far. Thank you.
Thank you, Selena. Scott?
Yeah, it just occurred to me, I guess we should say something about this. This is not really a report from me, but we have a new police chief. So Mr. Alston, who was our deputy police chief under Chief Morgan and has been, I was going to say moonlighting, but that's not correct, has also been our code compliance interim director for quite some time, I think a year plus, has been named by the city manager as the new police chief, which I'm very excited about. And I really, I miss Chief Morgan. I considered him a friend as well as a professional colleague. And I really like our new chief, Alston, quite a lot as well. And I just love speaking with him, and I learn something new every time I talk to him. And I look forward to building a friendship with him as well, and a professional relationship. So welcome, Chief Alston, officially as the police chief. Okay, other reports. This is sort of a personal privilege thing, but I know that this is one of Brian's last meetings. And so, I just wanted to, Brian, thank you for all the work that you've done, not only in the almost 2 years now that I've been a council member, but for 20 plus years. I've learned a lot from you in the last 2 years, and I regret not doing more work to just work with you more and learn more from you. But I've learned a ton no matter what. So thanks just for everything that you've done. And I probably would have been less hard on you and everyone else over the last couple of years going in if I, had really realized just the time and energy and love and just everything that you and Mayor Miles have expended over the course of decades. So just thank you for being a public servant, because it can sometimes be a very challenging, strenuous job, and you do a great job. So thank you. And also just getting very personal, and I really hope that you don't mind. Being an out queer person is not always easy, and I'm sure it was much more difficult for you. You're not that much older than me, but I'm sure it was much more difficult for you when you were my age. So I just want to thank you also for being a leader in the community as an LGBTQ community member, because I don't know that folks like me in the next generation would necessarily feel safe or comfortable doing this if you hadn't sort of paved the way with some of your other colleagues 20 plus years ago. So thanks for that too. I don't know that I would be here without you blazing the trail. And I just really like and respect you so much. And I just want to thank you for all the work that you've done. And the last thing I'll say on this is probably, well, I hope it's more well received than I think it will be. But I am very concerned about the time frame of our city manager's departure. Our city manager's last day is in about 3 weeks, and we haven't hired a new person yet. We haven't interviewed anyone. We said when we declined to invite Latasha to stay longer, that when we hired a new city manager, they would have overlap with the current city manager, and that's not happening. And just real candidly, I mean, I know we have a recruiter and they're doing their thing that the public can't see, but the process hasn't worked to my satisfaction, and I'm feeling very uneasy about the fact that in 3.5 weeks, we're not going to have a city manager anymore. So I hope those of you who were super gung-ho about not inviting the interim city manager to stay longer can get on top of that process, because I haven't seen anything special happening, and I have no idea who the new city manager is going to be. And it shouldn't be us. It shouldn't be a group of us or one of us. And I'm just very concerned about where we are right now, and I wanted the public to know that.
Thank you, Scott. Anything else? Okay. I want to give a little bit of a report out. We had a wonderful meeting last Tuesday night. All the days are blurring together for me. With the Green Team, we had a kickoff event for the Mount Rainier Native Plant Network, and it went really well. We had over 50 people attend our Zoom call, which was great. Shout out to the Green Team for organizing it. A lot of people put in hard work to make it a really successful, fluid presentation. We talked about the network itself, the idea behind it. We talked about why native planting is so important from an ecological standpoint. And then we talked about all the resources that we're going to have available for folks. We have a group of habitat advisors who are residents in the city who are working with the Audubon Society and have gotten certified. They can come to your yard, help you figure out how to landscape with native plants in your yard for free, which is wonderful. And we're leveraging that outstanding social capital from our city to help people get acquainted with the Mount Rainier Native Plant Network. And then we can certify your yards in the fall for membership in that network. The Endangered Species Coalition sent a representative to our Zoom call. And they are opening to funding us with a little bit of money, not a lot, but just a few $100s potentially to purchase some native shrubs. And so we're going to see if there's a way to get that, have those shrubs as an incentive to join the network. So for example, the first X members of the Mount Rainier Native Plant Network might get a shrub. So we're really working hard to stand up that committee. And the Green Team really is owed a lot of credits on that front. I have to give just a big shout out to the Green Team there for their work. I also want to go through my thank yous, which I almost forgot, but I do want to get through my thank yous. Brian, I want to thank you for setting up that Spring Park meeting, because I know how appreciative the people who've been involved in that project over the last year were of that meeting, and for you just seeing that through. That was a commitment you made at the beginning of the year, and you have seen that through, and it's on us to take that baton from you. So just really appreciate you getting that work done. Selena, I want to say thank you for texting me every time I am a couple minutes late to a meeting and making sure I'm coming up here. I appreciate that. The reason why I am usually a couple minutes late is I am putting Finn down and trying to get him down to 7 o'clock by 7 o'clock so that Meg does not have to put 2 kids down. I can get Finn down, run up here for the meeting. She can focus on Austin. And sometimes Finn is not cooperating always. So I appreciate the text messages there. Scott, I want to thank you for a conversation we had over the phone a few weeks back. I just really appreciated the conversation. It was just a really, I just appreciate your honesty that you bring to those conversations, and just really looking forward to working with you over the next couple of years. I think we have a lot that all of us have learned from Mayor Miles and from Brian, and hopefully we can apply those lessons to how we work together and how we get stuff done here over the next year. So just appreciate that and looking forward to our time together on the council. And that is all I have. I will turn it over to the city manager. Latasha, do you have anything you would like to report out to folks?
No report.
Okay. Thank you, Latasha. And that is all. Can I get an adjournment?
Motion to adjourn the meeting.
Second.
Third.
Hearing no objection, the meeting is adjourned. Thank you guys, and we're out of here by 8:48. Boom.
Wow.